So if you're like me and you went to high school in the early to mid 2000s era, you might have been heavily influenced by some of the amazing music at the time. For example, My Chemical Romance, Him, and I could go on, but just certain musics that have influenced your style, and maybe you have identified as goth or punk or emo during that time period, which I will say I identified as all of those at the time. And it has also just heavily influenced my style throughout my entire life. And so during that time, there was just such a great amount of media that was really edgy and dark and beautiful. And all of that has just truly informed the stuff that I love to wear and have always really enjoyed wearing. And so today I'm gonna make something that honors that part of my style, and I'm gonna make a Gothic Victorian sort of vampire-y style top that can be styled casually and also be dressed up to be very fancy and very cool. If this is something that resonates with you, then this video is for you. So stick around if you want to see the process of me crocheting this Gothic style top. So to start off, I want to show you this little swatch that I made. I have showed it in another video, but I'm thinking I definitely want to use this stitch on the bottom lining and possibly on the bottom of the sleeves as well. And so that border there, and then these picot stitches. I'm thinking I'm going to use these stitches for the top, but I'm gonna do a little sketching and just kind of fill out a few pages with some ideas to really nail down what I want the shape to be and what I want it to look like before I go ahead and dive into exactly how I'm going to put this together. So I got to work in my new sketchbook sketching out my ideas for this top, and here is what it looked like. I took my bust measurement, cut that number in half, and I wanted my foundation for this top to be as long as that measurement was and to stretch a little bit beyond it, not too much, but just so that it could have a little bit of stretch to it so I know that it could fit me. So once I had a couple layers of single crochet for the foundation, I started working on the pretty scalloped lace for this top. I just needed to hop on here real quick to explain that I had been frogging a lot, and that's because the pattern repeat that it called for was 8 plus 2, I believe, and it's so easy for me to miscount how many I need and to get that wrong. So I thought that meant for my measurement that 68 stitches would work, and it turns out that 68 stitches does not in fact work. I need to have 66, I believe. So I'm gonna go forward. I just counted 66 stitches, and I'm just gonna see if this works out. I think I have frogged this lace pattern. I had it all done and I had to frog it twice because it wasn't matching up perfectly where the end was exactly at the end of that last little bump. So I needed to frog the whole thing twice. Also, I'm very tired today, so maybe that has something to do with just like miscounting, but I always seem to do this at the very beginning of a project or at the beginning of a shirt where I miscount. But I think I figured it out, so I'm gonna go forward with this count and see if this fixes all my problems. And that did in fact fix all of my problems. The lace was looking perfect and I was ready to move on to the next step. Once the lace border was done, I started going in with the black cotton yarn and putting in single crochets on top of that. So skipping ahead a little bit, I added the picot mesh stitch on top of this lace border for the bottom of this top. So I've made a decent amount of progress on the first panel so far. Here's what it's looking like. I'm really liking it. I'm liking the style of it. I'm kind of thinking that it might not be able to be as like opaque as I wanted it to be, simply because I do not have it in me right now to use a single crochet for this entire opaque part. And I think that's okay. Like, I think that it needs to be something that is sustainable, that I would actually want to make and be excited to make. And if that means I need to wear a black bra under or a black undershirt or whatever I need to do, I'm completely okay with that. And I think that it still looks really cool. I love the trellis stitch, this like picot trellis stitch that I have going. I'm really liking that style. And I'm thinking for the top, once it gets up to like here, once it gets up to the neckline, I'm thinking I want to have a sweetheart style neckline of some sort. It doesn't have to be super dramatic, but just something that doesn't go straight across. We'll see what I actually end up doing once I get to that point, but right now I just got to go hard on these half double crochets that I've been working on, and I will catch you up when I am further along. And so I crocheted my heart out with these half double crochets, filling out this solid portion of the top. It took a long time. Really, this footage doesn't really capture the amount of time that I spent doing this. Probably the longest part of this entire project was filling out these solid panels, but it was actually relaxing. I started messing around with making like a sweetheart shape for the top, but I decided to frog it because I didn't like how that was looking, and I didn't know how I would add the picot on top of that. So I just got back from a walk, so I'm very sweaty, but I needed to update you on the design process of this. I ran into a little dilemma, and that is that when I originally made the foundation chain and everything for this, I measured it out perfectly, and for whatever reason, this panel is looking a lot smaller than it should, I think. I measured it out and it's somehow shrank, like the entire thing just looks a little bit smaller than I want it to. So I started kind of worrying about, is it going to fit me, and will I be able to actually construct it in the same way that I thought I was going to and actually still have it fit me. Let me show you. So here's what it looks like. I've gotten a lot of progress done on it. Like, it looks okay, but if it fits me, it's going to be just barely a perfect fit. I should say maybe even on the tighter side, which is okay, but it's cutting it close, and I've never cut it that close before with just any other thing that I've ever created. I've always given more leeway, and maybe that's why I'm worried, is I don't know actually what it should look like when I'm designing something that's really form-fitting. My plan is to just continue going forward with my original design, and if I have to make any alterations, I would make something in the middle here that I could just add a little extra width to the whole thing. So, and I've kind of brainstormed some ideas. I could do like just a plain black panel that would match the shirt, or I could do like a corseting sort of thing on the side. That could be really fun. And I don't know how that, it kind of worries me even thinking about modifying it, because then it's like, what if it's still, like, what if it looks worse? But that's just kind of the risk you take when you're designing clothing, and I'm very new with figuring out sizing and everything, so that's my thoughts on that. And yeah, I'm at the point where I'm not gonna frog it, and I just want to move forward and just see how I can improvise along the way and problem solve through this. I'll update you a little bit later. And this is me doing the picot stitch for the bottom part of the second panel, and it was looking just like the first panel, so I was happy. Now, skipping way ahead, I had finished both panels and it was time to do my very first try on, so I binded everything together with some stitch markers, and I gotta tell you, I was ecstatic that it was actually fitting on my body. I honestly, up until this point, I just had hoped that it could fit me. I didn't know if it would. I was really starting to see the vision kind of starting to come together, and I was very excited. And this is my very sleepy dog that just woke up from a nap looking super cute, but on this part, I am seaming everything together because I had both panels completely finished, so it was time to actually seam them together with single crochets. And I actually managed to catch a little bit of rainbow hour, so I was pretty happy with that. And this is me working on seaming the side portion of the panels. And then I went in and added a border around both armholes and the neck hole, and pardon my feet here, I'm not sure what was happening there. So I just wanted to give you a quick real-time update here. I have done one of the sleeves and I really liked it. I tried it on. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's a little cap sleeve, and I have yet to add the lace. I'm going to add this red lace border to that as well, which I'm sure will be a whole process, but I'm kind of winging the sleeves. I looked up some tutorials and watched a little bit of them, and it really kind of seems like I couldn't find a just general cap sleeve tutorial. It seems like it really is based off of what you're making, and a lot of people make them specifically for their projects. So I just wanted to get the general idea of how to make them and just kind of go from there. So that's what I'm doing, but I'm also keeping track of everything that I'm doing just because I would like to make a pattern with this. And I also want to say that last night I ran into such an issue that was so tiring, because it was very late at night when I found this issue, and I had already seamed everything together and I had to start unseaming stuff. And I want to get to that at the end when I do like my thoughts on all this. But I'll let you know exactly what it was, but let me tell you, it was very difficult to fix, but I did fix it, and so I do feel much more knowledgeable about that, about fixing my mistakes when it comes to that. So but anyways, I'm going to continue working on the other sleeve, and then I'm going to add the lace to the sleeves. I'm going to try it on, and then I'm going to call it done. I'm so close to the end of making this, and it's been a lot of fun to work on and to just completely design my own piece so far, and I've just had a really good time. It's been a lot of hard work, but really fun work. So I'll either show you a little bit of that process of putting the lace on the sleeves, or I'll just update you whenever I'm completely finished. So I'll talk to you soon. I had finally finished both cap sleeves, and my desk was looking quite the mess after all of the frogging and just everything I had been doing, but I was really loving the cap sleeve. I think it really gave it that Victorian flair. Once the cap sleeves were added, the last thing that I needed to do was go ahead and add that beautiful scallop lace border to the sleeves as well. And I decided to do some single crochets leading up to that scallop border, just to kind of give it like a little bit of dimension, and so that it wouldn't be blocky or abrupt where that scallop cut off, because I didn't want the entire sleeve to have scallop, only a few scallops for the sleeves. And here's a little bit of better lighting so you can see that scallop border. But once I added the lace to the sleeves, it was time for the reveal. It has been quite the week for me. Basically, every second that I wasn't doing something else, I was working on this design, I was thinking about it, I was just obsessively just trying to improve the design and make it the best that it could be. I did a lot of changes to my original ideas, and that's something that I'm learning, is that as I'm designing clothing, like crochet clothing, I'm going to probably come up with something very different than the original sketch. But I think that is the fun part of designing crocheted clothing, is that a lot of times, if not every time, your design is going to turn out different than what the original sketches were. The original sketches are really just inspiration for me to pull from and to say, what was I trying to make this look like originally? What am I trying to aim for? And then as you go along, you make improvements and changes. And that's exactly what I did. I just realized that certain things were going to look better. And so my finished product looks so different from my original sketches. But I'm very happy that I have the flexibility to make those changes and to just make it better. And I will say I am very tired after this week because of trying to perfect it, and I do feel like everything that I did was worth it. First of all, I just want to say that I love it so much. It is my favorite thing that I've ever made. It is truly what I think of my personal style and what I want to evoke. It perfectly encapsulates what I love and the type of fashion that I love to wear. That Gothic Victorian, but also punk and just like kind of rock inspired. There's so many different inspirations that kind of went into my top, and it kind of reminded me of my wedding. I'll throw in some photos of my wedding and the decor because it's very similar with what I went with for my wedding. So when I was getting ready for this reveal, I felt like I was getting ready for my wedding again. I had very similar hair and makeup, and the decor was like Gothic, and it was based on the Phantom of the Opera, which was another inspiration for this top. Just mixing like all of the things that I love, like the Phantom of the Opera, My Chemical Romance, just that dark Victorian aesthetic all came together and created something that is very inspired by kind of historical Victorian, but is still really modern because it is a crop top. So I'm really happy with how it all came together. I never could have guessed what it would look like from the beginning. I had my ideas of what it would look like, but it definitely just evolved into something completely different that I never could have imagined. And I really feel like that is such a fun thing about designing your own clothing, because it just unfolds before you, especially if you're not super rigid. I think the best thing to do is to not be super rigid if you're designing crochet clothing. I'm still early in my crochet designing journey, so I'm still learning quite a bit, and I think that I did learn so much while I was making this top. Now, I want to talk about the difficulties that I ran into. Number one thing that I will say that I have come to realize is possibly the most important thing when making crochet clothing and designing crochet clothing is that every time that you come into a different pattern, so let's say going from this solid block of half double crochets here into this mesh, it is so very important that your stitch count is perfect. And you can count 2, 3, 4 times and do the next row and still be like, oops, I messed up, gotta recount. And I've done that many times, but it all turned out okay. And the more I realized that, the more I just counted. I would count like 3 times in a row without even questioning it. I'd be like, well, I'm going to count this several times to make sure that the next part is correct. It was the same thing with the lace border on the bottom and on the sleeves, because the lace border requires a very different pattern than the mesh border. So when it went from this mesh to that lace on the bottom, I needed to make sure that I added in some stitches to make it the right amount of stitches for the mesh. But once I kind of realized that all I really needed to do if I didn't have a perfect amount of stitches is add in a couple, then I realized it was pretty easy to kind of go from one pattern to another. And that's something that I will definitely have to get used to, is continuously counting and making sure that I need to increase or decrease, that I make that change for the next part of the top. And I'm so glad that it fits me. I was really worried because I'd never made anything this like snug before. And that's why I decided to make the armhole like really, really big, because I really hate tops that have armholes that just like cut into your arm. It's the worst feeling ever. And because I want to wear this top as much as possible, I want it to be as comfortable as possible. So I made the armholes nice and long, and I'm glad that I did that because it's so much more wearable. And really at every point I was like, I want to make sure that I could wear this. I want to make sure that I can style this with my wardrobe. Okay, so that is the first thing that I learned while making this top. And the next biggest thing that I learned is, before you seam everything together, like the front and the back panel, to absolutely make sure that everything is perfect. Because 2 nights ago, I was working on this top and it just hit me when looking at the top straps that one of the straps was missing a row of mesh. Like all of the other mesh were the perfect length, they were all the same length, but I noticed that the pattern looked different on one of the tops of the straps. And I was like, oh no, because it was already seamed together. I had seamed the whole shirt together. I didn't do the sleeves yet. It was just when it was like a tank. So I had to go back and find those woven in ends and pick those out with a tiny crochet hook, locate them and frog all of the seaming that I had done. And the hardest part is because it's black yarn and it was extremely difficult to see. It was hard to find those seams, but through a miracle, I figured out and I found those seams and I got it fixed. But I honestly was like, I don't know if I just ruined this top, because now it was not a crazy noticeable thing. But once I actually went back and added that extra row of picot stitch and seamed it all back together, I was like, I definitely feel like this sits so much better. The mesh looks like very, very uniform, and maybe I didn't notice it as much before looking ununiform, but I knew that it would kill me. I knew that it would bother me so much, and I just couldn't live with that. So that was 2 hours of fixing my mistake. While my husband put on one of the vacation movies, I had that in the background and I was just like, my head was hurting, my back was hurting. I did a lot of correcting mistakes this week and it really kind of took a toll on my body. So that's why I did a lot of yoga today, and I plan on doing like a lot of yoga over the next few days to really get myself into better shape. All that being said, I don't regret anything. I think that I had learned from that so much, and I don't think I'm going to be making that mistake again where I have to unseam something that I've already seamed. I need to 100% check and make sure there's nothing missing. And that was one moment when I was like, oh, this is what people are talking about when they're like, this thing drove me crazy, this project drove me crazy, because it's like it didn't drive me crazy, but it definitely tested my patience and really made me think about what is important to me in this project. Is it important to just continue forward and have it done and call it done? Or is it important for me for it to be as perfect and beautiful as it can be so that I can wear it often and be more proud of it? And I knew without a doubt that I was going to do it. It just, that split second of willpower was tested. I'm very tired after all of this, but I'm very fulfilled. I feel this might be the most like fulfilling project that I've ever done because of just, I felt like I had really put my creativity into it, and it was fully designed by me. Like at every point I made the decision of what stitches I wanted to use, and I can say that I 100% designed this piece. Of course, I used elements of certain things like the picot stitch and this lace border, but just the idea of putting these things together in this way is 100% my own, and I'm very proud of that. I hope that you love this piece as much as I do, and I hope that you see my vision and my inspiration that I had of just that beautiful romantic Gothic style. I hope that you love it and got some inspiration as well to create something that you love. I'm planning on making a pattern out of this, and I want to have like a written pattern as well as like a little bit of like a video explanation possibly, to really kind of get the point across of how to do everything, just because this is my very first pattern that I've ever made, and so I want it to be perfect. I want everything to be understood, and I would love to do like a tester call for that as well once I start kind of getting this stuff put together. If anybody wanted to make this, I want them to have the opportunity to make this before Halloween. So I think that's going to be what I'm going to be working on over the next several weeks. Definitely, if you have any feedback on this top, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And I wanted to also show you the yarn that I used in case anyone is interested, because I really recommend these yarns. I think that this cotton is so soft. I love it. And it's also a very black yarn, but honestly, it kind of reflects the light enough where it's easy to see the stitches. So let me show you what brands I used. So this is for the black yarn. And this is for the red yarn. This is one of like my favorite labels for some reason. It's very satisfying. It has like embossing on it, and just the yarn itself has a great texture. I love it. It just feels great to take out of the wrapper and just start working with it. It's also very easy to see the stitches in this. I hope that you really enjoyed this video and that you got some inspiration here. And if you want to see more videos like this, definitely subscribe, because I plan on making so much more crocheted clothing in the future and posting those videos here. I hope you have a great rest of your day and take care.